I mean, your day is just kicking back, doing nothing. You got all the time in the world for stuff like this, I'm sure. Welcome, everyone, to the October 2023 edition of The Impact, a sustainable CT podcast for your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Manager at Sustainable CT, so if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you, to info@sustainablect.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by the Tremaine Foundation. The Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation seeks and funds innovative projects that advance solutions to basic and enduring problems, and we are oh so glad they do. Visit them at tremainefoundation.org. Sustainable CT is independently funded. We don't receive support from any level of government or from a university, not even from a magical rainbow unicorn money tree. No, sir, but you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainablect.org. We have two bright stars in the New Haven firmament: Steve Winter, Executive Director of Climate and Sustainability, and Amelia Fortgang, who is an ocean climate activist from the People's Republic of San Francisco, but who is currently a member of the class of 2026 at Yale, that obscure educational institution nestled in the heart of the Elm City. Welcome to you both. I'm so glad you could join me today. I really appreciate your time. This is a huge deal. New Haven is the first Connecticut municipality to be certified gold in the Sustainable CT program. And before I ask you to jump in here, and I will, I promise, I just want to take a moment to remind our listeners just a little bit of what that means and why it's such a significant accomplishment. Sustainable CT is a voluntary certification program to recognize thriving and resilient Connecticut municipalities, and indeed to help them become thriving and resilient. Right? We provide a wide-ranging menu of best practices, and municipalities choose sustainable CT actions and implement them and earn points towards certification. For bronze, a town has to complete actions totaling 200 or more points. For silver, 500 points. And for gold, at least 750 points, and qualify for climate leader designation, which is no mean feat in itself. This is the first year we've offered gold level certification, and New Haven was not only the first and only municipality to cross that magic 750 point threshold, but they came in at a whopping 1,010 points, a truly remarkable achievement, because I got to say, we don't make this easy. We don't hand out points just to say, whoop-de-doo, you got a bunch of points and aren't you wonderful? We look for real substantive action on the ground, in equity and climate mitigation and complete streets and on and on. In fact, after becoming a sustainable CT registered town in 2018, New Haven didn't even bother to take a breath and jumped right to silver in 2019 with 925 points. It did it again, silver, in 2022 with 750 points. So if we had been offering a gold level certification all these years, New Haven would have qualified as gold from the get-go 3 times running. So bravo, New Haven, for all the important work you put into this and for being such an inspiration to other Connecticut towns. Let me see. Giovanni Zinn has joined us. Thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Glad to see you. You are the town engineer, is that right, for New Haven?
I am the city engineer, yes.
Excellent. Engineer extraordinaire for the city of New Haven. I like that. Okay. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Steve, why don't we start with you? This must feel pretty good, doesn't it? I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you come to this work, and why did you think it was important to pursue gold certification and climate leader and all that stuff to begin with?
Oh, thanks, Jim. So I've been with the city since just about the end of last year. And before that, I was an alder on the New Haven Board of Alders for about 5 years. Oh. And even as an alder, just noticed all the amazing work that city departments were doing across a range of issues related to climate and sustainability. In 2019, the city passed a climate emergency resolution. And then in 2021, an electrification resolution to set a goal of electrifying our buildings and our vehicle fleet by the end of 2030. But, if you look across the departments, whether it's our resiliency work, whether it's the things we're doing with zoning and housing, there's just a lot of amazing work that's going on at the city. And folks at the city, they really work their tails off. They've got a ton of different things going on, but they're still able to prioritize work related to climate and sustainability. And so I think that elevating that work and seeking out recognition and certification through Sustainable CT is a way to acknowledge the value there, and also to encourage others across the state to do the same. So we're really thrilled that we're able to make it to gold. Like you said, you really don't make it easy. There's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
Internally, just meeting with all the different stakeholders and leaders who are doing this work, and then figuring out how to document it appropriately so that you can get those points from Sustainable CT. It's no small task.
Yeah, we've heard that a lot. We don't make it very easy, but then we don't want to. We want it to mean something and actually have, real measurable effect on the ground and the quality of life and kind of municipality. So yeah, we make that hoop a little hard to jump through. We ask Amelia, you came to this as a Yale student, or was it more of a personal conviction for you to get involved? Tell us why you became involved. Is there any aspect of it that you stood out for you as being particularly compelling or important as you did this work?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Francisco, very, very far away. And I became really passionate about climate change because I was seeing it in my own backyard. We had school days canceled because of wildfires and these torrential rainstorms in the last year. And I got really involved in climate and political advocacy work. And I think that was, for me, one of the most important parts about growing up in San Francisco was being so involved in the city. And so coming to Yale, it was really, really important to me to be involved in the place that I'm living, right, and working to help it achieve like a more green and just future. So at Yale, I'm studying ecology, and I'm really interested in going into environmental policy. And so I came to this internship in City Hall because I really wanted to get a sense of what government and working in government looked like from the inside. I'd done a lot of advocacy work, pushing governments or elected officials to do more or to pass certain policies. And I really wanted to see what it was like to actually be working towards, achieving these things that I'd advocated for.
The receiving end of that advocacy. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was really, really interesting to me. And I think Sustainable CT is so cool in that in New Haven, at least, a lot of the work was documenting these amazing city initiatives that were already happening. And at the same time, completing this application always helps push a municipality to do more. And I think those two components are really important to me personally.
Well, I got to tell you, all of you, really, but particularly I imagine Amelia had strong hand in this. One of the things that impressed the hell out of me, we do reviews of all of these things. The towns submit their certification applications. And you can imagine that there is a broad range of how towns treat these things. And I'm not being critical. Some towns have a lot of resources to bring to this and others don't. There are a lot of different variables, and it really depends. There are a lot of different things going on. But I got to say, New Haven's, it was just such a pleasure to read through. It's all there. It's done so well. It's documented so well. There's so much evidence of what you've been doing, and it's all laid out so well for the reviewers to be able to look at. So to me, I don't know if you or all of you were involved in making that happen, but it's always been a joy to be able to read the certification applications and go through all the paperwork is nicely done. So there's that. Are you planning to stick around at all in Connecticut, or you hoofing back to California when you're done? What are you planning to do?
I have absolutely no idea. Maybe
Okay.
neither.
So we have a chance yet to keep you around. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I have a lot of family on the East Coast, so there's a
All
good
right.
chance that you stay here.
That's good to know. I have a question for our resident engineer. A lot of the actions that New Haven took stand as what we call success stories. Again, kind of very well documented, very well done. They stand up as being, the kind of thing other towns can look to emulate. That's why we hold them up as success stories for other towns to follow your example. And New Haven's had several of these. I'm thinking about Complete Streets work, and along with it, working with the League of American Bicyclists to achieve silver grade there as well. Tell us a little about I'm assuming you would be on this, a little bit about New Haven's Complete Streets program. Was it particularly challenging effort, or what are the results? Have the results been particularly meaningful in any way in New Haven?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a reflection of how we're viewing cities now and how our residents view the place where they live versus what was, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Where, a lot of the choices then in the 50s, 60s, and 70s were really about getting cars in and out of the city as quickly as possible. Now there's a recognition that cities are, sustainable places to live, and you don't have to come in and run out, but this is all about, that life that where you can work and live and play in areas that are all very close to each other. And so the importance of the right of way as something that is not just a conduit for cars, but really a part of the fabric of the city has been a big understanding. So emphasizing, first of all, pedestrian safety, vulnerable users, connecting our sidewalk network and investing heavily in sidewalks, not the most glamorous of activities, but probably the most fundamental, right? And then dealing with some of the high crash and troublesome spots across the city, whether it's our Peanut Roundabout or medians on Whaley Avenue or, our corridor of traffic calming on Clinton Avenue. All different parts of the city all have different treatments, but all with the same goal of creating sustainable, walkable neighborhoods.
Yeah. And what intrigues me about that whole issue is these are very competing interests. I mean, you think, right? Everybody wants the street for a different reason. Obviously, the cars want it for their reasons. And the commercial traffic wants it for theirs, and pedestrians want it for theirs, and bicyclists. And then you have and trying to complete streets really involves combining all of those, reconciling those competing interests in a way that makes the city work best.
Sure, yeah. I mean, the devil is always in the details, right? Yeah. You open up a Complete Streets manual, NACDO, they publish a bunch of wonderful ones, the National Association of City Transportation Officials, and you see these giant rights of way that they have, 120 feet or something like that, which is just unheard of here in New Haven. Yeah. And there you can fit a lot, right? And so here it's always about figuring out, well, what is this corridor best suited for? Is this about buses? Is about, pedestrians are pretty much in every corridor. Bikes, cars. I mean, all of that is a balancing act, and it's tough. You take some of the widest streets in New Haven, and once we start looking at design, we run out of space very quickly.
Yeah. Now, were you able to benefit from the experience of other cities? Were you looking at what other cities in your size have done? And you didn't go fly into this, blind.
Yeah, no, I mean, we get out the copiers, right? That's what we do in government. And we look whether it's nationally through NACDO or even other parts of Connecticut. We're trying to work a lot closer with some of our close municipalities like Hamden. We're doing trying to do a lot of work with them right now. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I think it's a benefit of Sustainable Connecticut is that you're able to see those stories and see those best practices and share amongst each other.
Yeah, everybody hates a roundabout until it's there and then they love it.
Right.
That's just something we've learned over time. No, don't put that roundabout here. It's terrible. And then suddenly they can't do without it. Oh, anyway.
Don't forget one of your favorite words, Giovanni, WooNerf.
Right, the WooNerf, yes. We're the shared space. I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but it's a shared roadway space where instead of having the sidewalks at a different level from the roadway, it's a slow speed roadway where everyone can go, sort of everywhere. And it really forces car traffic to slow to a crawl and it really emphasizes the pedestrianization of the space.
Yeah. With a lot fewer fatalities and accidents, I'm assuming. Benefit. Nice benefit.
No, I mean, speed, energy goes up with the square of speed. So,
Yeah.
Even a small reduction in speed, provides much better outcomes for those sorts of things.
So let's talk about support you may have from city officials like Mayor Elicker and his administration that has proven valuable. I mean, presumably you had strong support from the mayor's office, and I don't want to put you in the spot of having to speak for the mayor, but now's your chance to say something nice about the mayor or somebody else in the town administration that has helped support this effort all along.
Well, maybe I'll start just from so my department, we did the previous submissions of Sustainable Connecticut, and it's a huge testament to the commitment of the mayor, Steve's presence in our climate office. That's a huge commitment on the part of the mayor, and he hired an absolutely dynamic person to run that office, and Steve. And so it's, we're taking very seriously the commitments that Steve talked about at the start. I certainly appreciate having someone that could take this over and get us to gold. Right, we're at silver, now we're at gold. We really appreciate Steve and Amelia's work doing that. And, none of that would be possible without the very strong and steadfast support of the mayor. I don't know, Steve, if you want to chime in.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah, I think Giovanni's exactly right. I wouldn't be here, and Max, the other half of our office, wouldn't be here without the support that the mayor and the Board of Alders, through some American Rescue Plan funding, identified to get the office started. And I think that there's been a lot of strong direction since the office started around what our priorities should be. And so we're looking at how to reach more residents, particularly low and moderate income residents, with solar and energy efficiency and the electrification of the systems in their homes. The mayor's been really engaged with that as we look at developing more renewable energy in the city. We're looking at putting some solar canopies in parking lots and additional solar on buildings, as well as our landfill. The mayor's really been key in prioritizing that. So I think that there's the financial commitments, but also the leadership that comes with pushing these priorities along, week to week, month to month, when there's so much going on in the city that can be challenging and distracting.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. And again, we ask a lot. Sure, you have a staff now. You might have some resources to put towards this that other towns don't, but it's a huge task. This is not something a town would embrace if it didn't have practical, positive consequences. I mean, again, we're not giving out points because that's nice. You get points. You get a little gold thing, and gee, isn't that nice? You're a gold certified. What does it mean? Does it mean that you've saved money on your energy bill? Right? It doesn't mean you've reduced the amount of energy the city uses citywide. Does it mean that you've, brought efficiency to certain public buildings and the complete streets and equity and everything that's included? It has actual consequences on the ground. And that's presumably the mayor, they're not there for points and a gold award. They want to make sure this stuff is actually doing something for the city. So I think that's a tribute to his good judgment. That's great. That's excellent. We're talking about the city, and I'm going to take advantage of Amelia being here. I wanted to ask about the city's relationship with Yale. What does the town gown dynamic look like these days? And how much is Yale a part of what's going on with sustainability in the city?
I think the disparity between Yale and the rest of New Haven is very real. And I think there's a lot that's been I was funded through Yale actually to come work at City Hall and complete the sustainable CT application. And there's a few ways in which Yale is really helping and aiding the city in becoming more sustainable. And I think there is a lot more work that needs to be done. I think something that really surprised me completing this application was that a lot of my understanding of what New Haven was, I'd been living here for maybe 9 months before I came to the Office of Climate and Sustainability. A lot of my understanding of New Haven was just of Yale. And I think completing the application and learning so much about urban forestry and farmers markets and restoration of brownfield sites and bioswales and everything that was so separated from Yale was really interesting. And I think it really expanded my view of, how New Haven works and how it works sort of independently from Yale in a lot of respects.
Sure. Well, I'm sorry to put you on the spot like that. It is kind of the elephant in the room, not this room, but it's the elephant in town. It's a big player in town. It's hard to discuss New Haven without at least thinking about, well, where's Yale in this? Because they're going to influence what happens in so many different ways. It's interesting. I know that Yale too has a very strong environmental program, on their campus, and they do a lot of stuff internally. We work with their communications people on this too. So it's not as if they're separated from the whole concept or the subject matter, but how they deal with the town. I mean, I find that interesting sometimes, because it could be, do the interests coincide? Do the interests overlap? Do they have, competing interests? Are they actually working with the town to make things happen? Or are they getting in the way? I don't know.
I mean, I think it's obviously there's a very wide-ranging relationship between the town and Yale on many fronts. I mean, the three of us actually all went to Yale or are going to Yale, right? So there's one sort of real life example right there of how the two are so intermixed. I think on sustainability in particular, we are obviously very locally focused. The university has a global reach, and there's a lot for each of us to learn from each other. I mean, I think we've all done, Steve and I have both talked at Yale about the city's sustainability projects. My favorite of which was I shouldn't say favorite, but one of the most interesting was the British Art Center was doing something about climate change in art. And they invited me to come in and talk about, infrastructure projects. It was a fascinating thing.
That's great.
I knew I was out of place because I was the only one not wearing black in the room, but it's a lot of fun. And it really, one of the benefits I see for us is really it expands our minds, right? It allows us to sort of see past the 18.1 square miles of New Haven and see what other people are doing. And I think the inverse is true as well, in that Yale benefits in their work here, whether it's Amelia having an internship over the summer or work with the Urban Resources Initiative or, doing research projects with Yale School of the Environment faculty. Mm-hmm. It's easy to talk in large global terms, or not easy, but it's a very different sort of challenge, right? Yeah. To have those massive wedge graphs and things like that show emissions for the United States or the world. I think what we offer is the experience of actually having to get out and do the work, and the challenge of doing that on the local level, which, no classroom and can never prepare you for.
We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. Hey, while you're out there tripping the web fantastic, don't forget to join us on Facebook for some fun and interesting stuff. Guaranteed safe for children and pets. Come on, be our friend, won't you? At facebook.com/sustainableCT. And we, like millions of others, have hopped on the Instagram Threads bandwagon at instagram.com/sustainableCT and threads.net/@sustainableCT. And yes, of course, we're LinkedIn. Search for Sustainable CT from your LinkedIn page, and you'll find us right there, being all LinkedIn and media social. And if you're not yet a subscriber to Actions and Impact, the Sustainable CT newsletter, you could be missing out on some very important information to you, to your organization, and to your town. Accept no substitutes. Do yourself a favor and subscribe today. And you can do that where? At sustainablect.org, of course. And speaking of important information, we'll be having our annual awards celebration, the 2023 Sustainable CT Awards celebration at the site of the American Mural Project, 90 Whiting Street in the beautiful small city of Winsted, in just 2 days on October 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. Enjoy music and light fare and catch up with your Connecticut town peers. We'll also be screening a special trailer of the 4th episode of CPTV's Resourceful program, with producers on hand to answer questions and provide backstories about the show. And of course, you'll want to see the American Mural Project. It's the largest indoor collaborative piece of artwork in the world. That's right, spanning 120 feet in length and 5 stories in height. Serving as a pictorial chronicle, the mural portrays a diverse spectrum of laborers who have enriched American society and culture over the past century, and it is a celebration of ingenuity, productivity. So we hope to see you there. And if you're not yet registered to attend, well, you may still be able to do it at sustainablect.org. Hurry before it's too late. Let's get back to the program. We are back with the folks from New Haven who have just certified gold, the first and only town to do so this certification period, which is a pretty stellar achievement. I want to ask about a different kind of collaboration. One of the things that is a hallmark, I think, of New Haven's process in certification is the degree to which you folks collaborate with CPACE, with the American Bicycle, with other towns in the area, Hamden and Milford and Shelton. I think you've been working with quite a bit. I want to ask, was it difficult to find common ground in that kind of collaboration, or did it just seem to be the best, easiest, quickest route, kind of a more organic, positive thing, or was that a challenge to be collaborating the way you do?
I think that doing things across town lines, Giovanni probably has more experience with this than I do, but it can be challenging just simply from a bureaucratic alignment of interests and schedules and priorities. So I think certainly if you look at some of the larger regional projects, it's really helpful to have the guiding hand of the federal government's incentives for things like the work on the Farmington Canal Line or the East Shore Greenway, where these regional transportation corridors for biking and walking. We were working with partnering municipalities, neighboring municipalities, as a requirement of the federal grant. So I think that's a big spur. And I think locally, the city in some ways is enormous. It's 1,300 employees taking on all different kinds of tasks. But then when that's set against a population of more than 130,000, we really rely on partners to extend and expand the work that we're doing in providing services to residents. And I think that's true of everything, but especially true with things like our work in sustainability. So Giovanni had mentioned Urban Resources Initiative, the urban forestry and tree planting, a nonprofit that's fiscally sponsored by Yale University. And I think looking there, it's a really tremendous partnership in terms of getting trees to be adopted by residents, stewarded by residents. And that really is a true partnership. The city included inserts in our tax mailers to get more trees adopted. We submitted complimentary proposals to the U.S. Forest Service for urban forestry planting and planning grants that were both awarded last month. So I look at that work and the survival rate of all those trees being really high and think like, wow, this is great. And we wouldn't be able to do this on our own as a municipality.
Giovanni, have anything to add to how you approach collaboration?
I think Steve covered it pretty well. I think, finding people that have common goals in the other communities, which is tough because our work is within the borders of New Haven, but that's where getting up to Sustainable Connecticut to, our SCROG, that's important. In Hamden, we're lucky we have a town engineer that, thinks very similarly to us and actually used to work in our department. So that was kind of a built-in connection. But, he's enabled by an administration that, views a lot of things like complete streets and things like that, in a way that's similar to what we do. That's very helpful to find. You got to find people in the communities around you that, have common goals and also have common projects. All the different rules that each of us has. I mean, we all, publicly procure contracts, but the exact detailed way in which we do that all varies a little bit. And that's enough to trip up a lot of collaboration. Yeah. We have 169 municipalities in Connecticut, and they all do their own thing. And we don't like county government in Connecticut. And, there are many reasons for that. And it's something that a lot of us have sort of visceral reactions to, but it does make collaboration on a regional level quite complicated.
Well, the old adage, dirty water and dirty air, or for that matter, wildlife, doesn't know a city boundary from a country mile. So you almost are forced to collaborate on some issues to have any appreciable effect. But and another level of collaboration that I think New Haven does particularly well, calling it collaboration is a bit of a stretch, but you're engaging with, you're involving the community on a lot of these issues. And you might think, well, that's a no-brainer. If you're going to do things that affect the community, you might want to get their input. But towns really struggle with that in a lot of ways for a lot of reasons. But one of the things I've been reading and going through the material that, New Haven has submitted these past several years is that the number of times and the degree to which you go out, you engage with the community for input and for buy-in and for support and for, education and back and forth. It's a conversation. It's not like, handing down edicts from City Hall. This is what you must do. It's more of a more collaborative. And I wonder how we could speak to that a little bit. Are there other instances where that really paid off? Is it something you do as a normal routine?
I mean, I think it comes out of a strong conviction that when you consult with the people who are most affected by decisions, when you reach out to the public and get their buy-in, that, projects will be improved, they'll be more successful, they'll be shifted in ways that make them more beneficial to the community as a whole. So I think about our Complete Streets work or our cultural equity plan and how the outreach, the engagement is really baked into what the city's doing. So it's part and parcel of the whole initiative, and that the process really is integral to the product, so to speak. So I think to use Complete Streets as an example, with both of the Complete Streets projects we submitted for the equity toolkits, there's a really clear narrative in each one about how the community raised concerns that maybe somebody downtown working on that issue would have been aware on some level. But in having that back and forth with community members about, hey, if we're going to, narrow this roadway and put in a two-way cycle track, how can we make sure that that's going to really feel safe for people who are using the cycle track? And how can we make sure that there aren't conflicts when that road intervention approaches a school and you've got buses loading and unloading children? So I think that's really valuable. And then with the cultural equity plan, I think one of the strong things we heard was, look, we need to really extend work on cultural equity, on making art, holding events outside of downtown, bringing it more into neighborhoods, including folks who might not have been as well represented by the city's past investments in art and culture. And so I think that's extended through the plan and also into the grant making that the Cultural Affairs Department's done since then. So yeah, I think it's just, we try as much as possible to weave that into the fabric of each project.
Do you find that it actually improves the outcomes? I know it's a silly question, but I guess what I'm thinking is there are times, and I've spoken to actually Giovanni with engineers about this in the past, where some public works projects are by the numbers. They have to work this way. This pipe has to go here. This roadway has to be designed this way, and it's done not with a callous disregard for public opinion. I don't mean there's no intention. There's no malicious intent in there, but it's almost there's a right way and a wrong way to build a road, and having community involvement just makes it harder. Or on the other hand, even for those technical projects that the city is facing, does it make for a better outcome if the community is involved at some point along the way? Have you found that? How is that?
I think you're really on to something. It's very important. One of the things I like to say is that we might be the technical experts, but the residents are the experts in their community. They live there. They know what traffic is like at 10 o'clock at night. They know what it's like at 3 o'clock. They know what it's like at 7:30 in the morning, right? There's a lot of information to be gleaned. A lot of our complete street projects, especially the smaller ones, and on mile plus long corridors, we can't do this. like to have our meetings outside on the street, walk up and down. Neighbors start poking their heads out of the houses, and they can join the conversation kind of impromptu, right? And that's a way to get a lot of that local knowledge about the issues, and that does make for a better project, right? We can make assumptions about a roadway. We can go sit there for 20 minutes, a half an hour, and get a good vibe of the traffic. We know, generally speaking, what's going on traffic, but there's some of those little details that really are game changers that you often get from these community conversations. Should we be doing more outreach? We're going to always do more outreach, right? And that's something that we have to keep striving for and keep our eye on the target to make sure that we are involving everyone, especially communities that have not typically been involved in the public process. But yeah, it's, we have 30 alders, so our, town council, if you will, or board of alders, it has a lot of people. And so each alder has what, Steve, like 5,000 people, something like that each.
Yeah, I think that's like a great example of it's in a lot of ways, it's like a continuation of the, New England town meeting, hyper local government. You don't want to do a project or try to make an improvement if the, folks aren't on board with it, if the local alder isn't on board with it. And so figuring out how to bring those changes in a way that meets the community needs. I hear what you're saying, Jim. It's like in a certain way, like it's designed this way, it's got to work this way. But I think that, you look at things that we thought were good ideas, right? Like carving up our cities with highways. And think like, well, it would have been, good had there been more public process. And I think if you talk to folks over in East Rock, they'll say like, well, I remember when so-and-so, stood in front of a bulldozer and said, this highway's not going any further. So I think really there is a lot to be gained through the local public engagement.
Oh, absolutely. To say nothing, transparency, making sure that there's not corruption underneath any of these projects. And, it's pretty important to have community input. Amelia, in the work that you were doing with sustainability at New Haven, did you work with any of the community groups or go out and do any of the work hoofing it around town for community engagement?
I had the opportunity to talk to, I think it was in the end, like 13 different nonprofits and local organizations. And it was really interesting to be able to hear from everyone from, teachers to people who were, volunteering because they wanted to protect their waterway, and also joined canvassing with Steve and Max, the other employee in the Office of Climate and Sustainability, for home energy consultation programs. And that was really, really interesting to be able to talk to people and sort of see these sustainability initiatives in action and, think about how they actually connect to people's daily lives. I think it's hard to see that unless you're thinking about it on an individual person to person level.
Absolutely. What do you get? What's the largest problem you have in sustainability writ large for New Haven, either currently or that you might see in the future coming down the pike? I mean, Connecticut as a whole, just as an example, get you thinking, Connecticut as a whole has a solid waste crisis, and New Haven may be a part of that. So what is the next big thing, the next big challenge that you think you've got to try to get a handle on?
I think the elephant in the room here is climate change. And in so many ways, we don't really know exactly how something like climate change is going to impact New Haven. And so, this summer we had this extreme wildfire smoke, and it was incredibly hazy outside, and it was hard to see, and the sun was red. And at the same time, there were several, we'd recently designated the New Haven Public Libraries as cooling centers, and several times over the summer, they were activated as cooling centers. And so I think that is an ongoing challenge that we're all going to have to contend with.
That really did bring it home to a lot of people who may not even been disconnected with the whole concept, to really have that happen in New England the way it did for sustained periods of time is like, oh, I get it now. And you think, well, you should have gotten it a long time. But okay, at least you understand now the issue. Would that be it, Giovanni? You think climate change is because sea level rise is going to affect New Haven certainly untold ways? What's the biggest issue?
I think there's a few big issues, and I'll let Steve. Steve probably knows which one I'm going to pick as the one I can talk to. But maybe Steve, you can talk about some of the others. I'll bring up resiliency. Right, we're a coastal community. There are certain physical, very real consequences to climate change. Right. That we face now and will face increasingly in the future, whether it's, sea level rise is the one everyone immediately points to, but, this part of the country is going to see increased high frequency, high intensity rain events, right? That's a big thing. And when you get caught in between the two, that's a big challenge. And that's something that we've been working on ever since Irene and Sandy a decade ago. We've been very successful with both an Army Corps project and a FEMA brick project. That we'll be doing here between now and the end of the decade to help our resiliency. We've built a natural berm out in the cove to help with resiliency as well. And we've got, two of the largest living shoreline projects in the works in southern New England, that we're working on right now. So there's a lot that we're doing, trying to take a green first approach, whether it's our stormwater bioswales or our living shorelines. But it's a big challenge, and it's one that, we need a lot of help to solve. Resiliency is it's a global problem, but the solutions are often hyper local. So that, what's good for Long Wharf is different from the Cove, which is different from Fairhaven, which is different from City Point, and so on and so forth.
And they're very, very expensive.
They are, yes.
Which, local budgets.
Absolutely not. We're 200 million and counting, so it's big.
Well, yes, but I just want to throw in here this concept. I mean, what's odd about that? And you say, some flinty Vermonter. I'm not slamming Vermonters, but somebody living somewhere else, is going to say, "Why should I pay for New Haven's, stormwater capacity? Why is federal tax money going to that?" And this is happening all over the country because every region has a specific need or vulnerability to climate change that requires a great deal of money in some cases. Some cases not. Sometimes it's just straight ahead, stuff. But a lot of money is going to be required for some of this stuff. And increasingly the nation as a whole are going to be asked to pay for it.
Well, I mean, I think if you look at the federal projects we have, they protect I-95, they protect the Northeast Corridor Rail. Those are national transportation assets. Yeah. So there's one connection there. Another thing I would offer is everywhere you look has climate problems, right? Look at what, Irene, going back to Irene and all the flooding in Irene and Vermont, not to pick on
exactly.
You brought them up.
We're paying for theirs.
So it's really banding together. And how much does it cost to fix the problem now versus in the future? And not only that, but in 2050, when the sky is, literally and metaphorically falling, we're just not going to have capacity to deal with all of this, and we're just going to have to suffer. So I think by trying to get ahead of the curve, and Irene and Sandy showed us what we can expect in the future, and what is a 50-year event or a 100-year event then is going to be something significantly more common in the future. It was on us to prepare. Really continued that. And I think Steve brings the, sort of a wider lens to that, being able to cut across the city, whether it's housing, whether it's resiliency or, heat or what have you. Having him in that central location of government is incredibly helpful.
So, Steve, do you think that the community, which is to say the taxpayers and the voters, are on board? Are they supportive? Again, this is going to be expensive, laborious work, takes a lot of attention away, perhaps, from other things that, somebody may seem as more immediate, like, I don't know whether it's police protection or garbage issue. It's impossible to split your resources and money and people and man hours and people hours so many ways. Is the community on board understanding that this is something that's got to be addressed?
Yeah, I think if you look at the resolution that was passed in 2019, there is broad acknowledgement that climate change is an existential threat, right? It's not something we can just ignore because there might be expensive interventions. But I think there's also an acknowledgement that, to Giovanni's point, preparedness matters and to a certain extent can pay for itself. And that if we're investing in resiliency and we're investing in, more efficient buildings and electric vehicles, those types of changes, that we're going to have more robust systems that can stand the test when they're put to the test, whether it's a disaster or whether it's, newer systems that have lower operating costs. I think that there's value in making those investments for the resiliency they provide, but also that there's, going to be greater efficiencies over time. So I don't think it's all a matter of pouring money into things. If you look at the total cost of running a highly efficient, all electric building or an electric vehicle fleet, there's a real savings to the taxpayer there. There's fewer moving parts. There's fewer filters to replace. There's no oil changes. So I think that there's a financial problem there where we've got to figure out how to come up with the money to make those investments up front.
Money. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a real story to tell about why that's valuable. And I think that, we talk about climate change as an isolated issue, but it by definition intersects with so many other issues. So I think, Giovanni mentioned housing. I think housing and health are huge challenges in New Haven, and they're ones that are intimately tied up to whether or not a building's being properly maintained, whether that building is insulated, whether that building is well ventilated for heating and cooling and cooking. These are ways in which climate overlaps with people's basic living conditions every day.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the waste crisis that the state's facing. That's another key piece, but also intersects with air quality, as do, everything related to transit and our transportation issues, right? So we have off the charts asthma rates in New Haven. And so anything that we're doing that is going to help, reduce the amount of waste that's being incinerated, reduce tailpipe emissions, reduce the emissions from the oil tanks, right? We host an enormous amount of petroleum storage tanks that fuel everyone's vehicles, that fuel the flights coming out of Bradley Airport. Anything that's going to have positive impacts on that is going to help make sure that, kids can stay in school and not have to go home with an asthma attack. So I think that those stories are important to tell because it helps bring the doom and gloom into focus in a way that can help people relate to their day-to-day struggles.
Yeah, and if I can just add really quickly, I think Steve hit the nail on the head. By having climate change and sustainable thinking be a part of everything we do, I think one of the things the mayor's done is not only hired Steve to be that overall champion and sort of forward and outward looking thinker about it, but also has challenged us to imbue all of our operations with sustainability. Right. It's not either or. It's not you pay for sustainability or you're paying for trash pickup. It's really an and proposition. And as all of us department heads, we're challenged to make sure that sustainability is part of everything we do.
Well, you do it well. And I just want to say congratulations once again to you folks for achieving gold certification with us. We're going to see you. I hope we'll see a couple of you anyway. You're all invited to the American Mural Project on October 17th. We're excited about that coming up soon. So you can hand you your gorgeous gold plaque and, say huzzah, have a little celebration. So I hope to see you there. Thank you very much for doing this. I really do appreciate it. Thank you all very much. We hope you enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. As always, this program is recorded, produced, and copyrighted. By Sustainable CT. And thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation. Thanks again to all the friendly folks at the Elm City for joining us, Steve Winter, Giovanni Zinn, and Amelia Fortgang. Congratulations again to your stellar achievement. You're really making New Haven shine, and thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.